And a good morning, Birds fans. A Tuesday edition of Birds 365 with John McMullen and Jody McDonald. I will apologize in advance for my overexcitement doing Birds 365 here today because the Eagles solved all their wide receiver problems yesterday. If we're to believe Nick Sirianni, I'm sorry, I'm going to believe the numbers a little bit and say the Zach Pascal signing is not going to move the needle all that much for the Philadelphia Eagles this year, but we shall see. John McMullen, how enthusiastic are you with Zach Pascal being added to the Eagle wide receiver room?
Not very excited. You hope it's an upgrade, and you hope. I don't even hope it's an upgrade. I'm starting to think, wow, this is where I am, Jody. I'm starting to think, well, Nelson Aguilar took off in his third year. I'm starting to get back in we got to count on Jalen Reagor a little bit to, because of the athleticism. So, I was texting you. So I'm going to be honest here. I haven't watched a ton of Zach Pascal film. All I know is what Nick Sirianni basically says about the kid. And he raves about him, to be fair.
Right.
So, I went to Pro Football Focus and I looked at the rankings. Oof was all I can say. Oof. They graded 115 wide receivers last year, played enough to be rated. 113 out of 115. 113 out of 115. Jody, Jalen Reagor was 105. 105. Miserable. Then I got all the Eagles apologists getting well, that's 1 year. Carson Wentz was throwing a football because they hate Carson Wentz. So I said, all right, let me look back at 2020. Reagor 94, I believe. I'll have to double check. 90 out of 127. Pascal 97. He was better than it was a rookie, at least from that standpoint. If you want to look at the film, they're not perfect. We go all that. But the point I'm trying to make is the larger point. I always say when they say a good player is good, Aaron Donald's always at the top. And when they say a bad player is bad, they don't miss.
Right.
So I will say, if you want to play that game of who doesn't belong, and I throw out the names Calvin Ridley and Allen Robinson and Christian Kirk and Robert Woods and Zach Pascal, who doesn't belong? This is not a significant upgrade. Hopefully the Eagles still have something up their sleeve at this particular position. And now I think you got to start up with the draft again.
Yes.
I think you got to start up with the draft again. I don't think there's any question, but there's this there's this interesting disconnect. I want to get your thoughts on, Jody. So typically, like what the Eagles and what Nick Sirianni rave about, and I got a text from an ex-wide receivers coach yesterday, and they're talking about the little things, the fundamentals, and plus the work ethic. And I have no doubt that Zach Pascal's all those things. And, it got into this sort of off topic of how bad the Eagles receivers were, how bad the Eagles young receivers are. And I put Devontae Smith off to the side a little bit. With little things, sight adjustments, realizing the coverages, realizing where they have to be, not running the proper routes to the, attention to detail, which Nick has talked about on the record. So I completely believe that. But then I'm starting to think, then I go back to the grades and the ratings, and I'm thinking, well, if you're fundamentally sound, shouldn't that show up? And I'm thinking it does show up, but then what is the problem? Well, if it does show up, the problem is talent.
Yep.
The kid doesn't have a ton of talent. And this is an offense that needs an explosive player, and they still don't have it, obviously. So, long story short, no, I'm not excited about this signing even a little bit.
Yeah, nor am I. I know you like the NBA, so you'll understand the point I'm trying to make. The Sixers beat the Miami Heat last night without Joel Embiid and without James Harden. All the guys on the bench came up big. Maxey took it to another level. Jake Milton came out of hiding. What's his name? Furkan Korkmaz came out of the witness protection program and made some big shots, and they beat Miami. If I'm not mistaken, the Miami Heat still have Udonis Haslem as one of their players. He never dresses anymore. He's just one of the guys on the roster, but he's about 7 years removed from being able to make any kind of contribution on the court. But he's a great team guy. But he works real hard in practice because he pushes his teammates. And well, that's nice. If you can find that, that's good. And the NBA has expanded their rosters to 15, and most teams only play 8, maybe 9. So that 15th guy, you can do something like that, a creative roster spot where you got a guy just to keep around to make the other guys work harder and take their craft seriously and the like. Can the Eagles really afford that at the wide receiver position?
No.
When you've got Devonta Smith and then a bunch of guys named Pete. No, you need every position every body that you have at the wide receiver position to be able to give you something. The Eagle passing game wasn't good enough last year because they had J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and Jalen Reagor. And guess what? They still have J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and Jalen Reagor here. I thought we were looking to upgrade, to not reproduce. If Zach Pascal is just a slightly better J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, what have the Eagles really done? This was supposed to be the offseason. They went out and added a guy. They did it with Devonta Smith last year, rookie and all the trappings that come with it, but I think he stamped himself as a future star in this league. But this was supposed to be the year they added to that mix Zach Pascal, pet favorite of the head coach. I'm sorry, does not get me stirred one little iota.
No. And to be fair, I mean, I'm going to be fair to the Eagles as well. It's a 1-year deal. I mean, they haven't, and I assume it's for the veteran minimum. We'll see when it gets filed, but I can't imagine they're giving him anything more than that. Maybe some incentives, that type of thing tied in if he gets to play a lot. So, they're not stamping this as any kind of answer. And, it is plan. It's obviously plan, whatever you want to call it, C, D, E, F, maybe is the best letter for it. They did try to get Ridley. They did try to sign Kirk. They did try to sign Robinson. It looks like it's real. They tried to get Robert Woods as well. So they've been behind the scenes. I've compared it to the duck sitting on top of the lake. It looks all serene, but underneath, the duck is paddling furiously to stay atop. That's what they've been doing at the wide receiver position. Haven't been able to get anything done. It's a results-oriented business. Then when you end up with Zach Pascal, which we talked about yesterday, it's results-oriented, and you end up with Zach Pascal that, spin it however you want. And by the way, the Eagles aren't spinning this as some massive signing.
No, they're not. Every
coach has their guys. Every single one of them in every single sport has their guys. This is one of Nick Sirianni's guys. This is a guy he's comfortable with. This is a guy he wants around. Already I talked about, Jack Driscoll, for whatever reason, has become one of Nick Sirianni's guys. Loves the guy. Loves him. And I think he's better than Zach Pascal. I don't want to insult Jack Driscoll because I think he can play a little bit. But every coach, in my point, has, you just mentioned Udonis Haslem. People want people around because of some of those intangibles they do have. And if this guy, he's played quite a bit in Indianapolis. I think 900 snaps last year, somewhere in that range. If he's at 900 snaps this year, that's not a good thing. That's how I'll frame it.
And I like your analogy of the ducks paddling the hell under the water, but you don't necessarily see it on the top. And yeah, the paddling underwater is a good thing if the duck is moving. Now, he can be moving tremendously, and you can see it above the water as well. You can paddle as hard as you want under the water. If the duck's not moving an inch, it doesn't matter how quick those feet are going underneath the water. And just being in the mix for Robert Woods is nice. If you don't get him, you know what it counts for? 0. Close to trading for Calvin Ridley. Almost had to deal the, oh, shoot, he's suspended for the entire year. You know how much that improves the Eagles? Absolutely 0. Devontae Adams got traded this offseason. Don't know if the Eagles had a conversation. They probably inquired. They really, you're going to trade him, Green Bay? Where are you going to trade him? He ends up as an Oakland Raider. Was it due for the Eagles? 0. Just doing your due diligence and being inquisitive and putting in phone calls and being on top of things.
Mean, you're right. I mean, that's what we said. And the Eagles know that. They don't want it to be framed. In fact, they don't like to be framed as losing out on all these players. They don't like it. They don't want to be known as the team that loses out on players. But I do think it's real right now in this snapshot in time, and I know people get upset, and that's why the trade market to me always made more sense. And with Ridley, obviously nobody knew that was coming. Nobody in the NFL knew it was coming, except the Falcons at the very end. In the case of Woods, who knows? Because he's going to run first team with a not exactly a great, other than they were a number 1 seed. And, so who knows why he directed things the way he wanted to direct the things. But they have an issue right now at the receiver position when it comes to recruitment because of the way they play. And I know people say it's about Jalen. It's not about Jalen Hurts. It's about the way they play. It's about the offense they ran last year. We had Brad on yesterday, Brad Spielberger. Essentially, Jody, except for Deshaun Watson, all these contracts are 2-year deals where you can get out of it after, by the 3rd year. Occasionally with a really high-profile player, Kirk Cousins, before you get that 3rd year. But I would say well over 95% of these contracts have an out after the 2nd year. And agents are savvy enough to know if you want to be in a position to either get the rest of your deal or more likely restructure and keep pushing things off, but still getting money year to year on a year-to-year basis, you got to produce, especially if you're a high-profile free agent like Christian Kirk, Allen Robinson. You got to produce. And if you don't produce, you're done. You're done after that 2nd year, maybe even after the 1st year. It occasionally happens, not generally with that high profile, but you're done. So they're well aware that they have to be in certain situations to maximize their earning potential. I'll put it as, and that obviously helps agents as well because they make money based on what their clients get paid. So right now they have a problem at that particular position. Not every position, not an organizational problem, but right now they have a recruitment problem at that particular position, and you got to change it. And how do you change it? The only way you can change it is to get on the field and prove otherwise.
I hear the point you're trying to make, but are the Eagles defined in the minds of all NFL people, most importantly, free agent wide receivers that they could have gone out and quote unquote tried to recruit, because they became a run-heavy offense for the last 60% of the season? The first 40% of the season, they were throwing the ball like most other teams in the National Football League. They came to the in-season realization, we got a really good drive blocking line, and maybe we should just try and run the ball down other teams' throats. But it wasn't like Nick Sirianni was hired and came in and kind of fumbled through his first press conference
right,
and
Jody,
said, we're going to run the ball down other teams' throats. I'm coming in here to redo the National Football League. We've got the best offensive line. We're going to power drive our way into the play. That wasn't the case.
No.
It just kind of developed organically because they needed it to.
And I think behind the scenes, everybody in the NFL knows Nick wants to throw the football. But I think the point is, you make a valid point, but the point is they shipped it out of necessity because they weren't successful throwing the football as much as
And
they
why
did.
weren't they successful?
Well, chicken and the egg. There's a lot of things. I mean,
All right, well, I'm going to ask you to put them in an order for me. Was Jalen Hurts more incapable than the wide receivers were under-talented, or was the under-talented wide receiver core what kept Jalen Hurts from putting up better
well,
numbers?
and I think you can also throw in the scheme, a young coaching staff learning on the job. I think that was part of it as well. But, it depends. Like, is Jalen Hurts? Jalen Hurts is behind Devontae Smith, for instance. Devontae Smith is ready to go. Devontae Smith is ready to put up numbers. If he had Justin Herbert, for instance, as a young quarterback, Joe Burrow, he'd be putting up just, if he stayed healthy, obviously, outrageous numbers.
Which
He's
he
ready.
did last year.
He's ready to go. Now, he had 916 yards, which sounds like a lot. It's an Eagles franchise record, but that's not a lot in the modern NFL, especially for a receiver with that talent level. I mean, he could be up.
Not when Jamar Chase does what he does.
Yeah,
it
exactly.
Makes the 900 yards kind of pale in comparison.
He could be up at 13, 14, that range, and probably has the talent to do so. All the other receivers, yeah, Brett Jalen's, probably getting hurt by them. Not probably, definitely. Now the Eagles seem to think more of Quez Watkins than I do. But I think part of that is because they want to pump up what they do have at the present time. Not that he's a bad player. It's just I think he'd be fine as a number 3, and I think he'd be good as a number 4. I don't think he's a number 2 right now. And there's still room for development. He's one of those guys that's going to clean up the fundamental stuff, the technique stuff, the route running stuff, and maybe Zach Pascal can help with that kind of stuff, and maybe he's the type of player that he'll be around to help. So there's still room for improvement. But from the larger perspective, it is what it is at this point. And until you change it, and by the way, Nick wants to change it. I say all the time, Nick wants to run 11 personnel. Nick wants to have an explosive offense. Nick wants to be able to throw the football all over the field. But he does what he needs to do in order to win on a Sunday or a Saturday or a Thursday or a Monday, if you want to, they play so many days of the week. And right now, people around the league see that. And, by the way, and Andrew Brandt will tell you this about his time in Green Bay. Look, nobody wants to play in Green Bay. Nobody wants to spend their time in Green Bay. Sometimes you have to pay a premium. So if you're going to get somebody like that, you have to overpay them to come to your organization. Different reasons, obviously, weather-wise, and people don't want to hang around. And nowadays, it's not as big as a deal because people are so rich they just leave Green Bay the minute the season's over, and they want to play there because it's a good team, good organization. But he'll talk about all the time how hard it was to get people to stick around the offseason. He was the one who created workout bonuses so people would just stick around to work out with the team. Everybody, Jacksonville. Why did Christian Kirk get that money? Because Jacksonville has this terrible reputation as an organization. So if you want to get the player, you got to overpay the player. And the Eagles are too disciplined. They're not going to do that.
All right. So, is the Eagle organization considered a substandard organization that players wouldn't want to come play for?
Exact opposite.
Well, then again, inform me, educate me. Why is it a bad place to play? Why would they have to?
It's not a bad place to play. That's what I said. There's different reasons. I use Green Bay as an example. That's the issue.
I'm not asking you about Green Bay. I'm asking you about the Eagles.
No, but I'm trying to compare. That's the issue Green Bay has. Jacksonville's a bad organization. They have to overpay. The Eagles have to overpay at wide receiver right now in this snapshot because of the way they play football right now. Not that they're a bad organization.
For the last 10 games of last year.
Well, for the last year and what people think they're going to be because of how the team is structured. I mean, again,
so Jalen Hurts is scaring off wide receivers is what you're telling me.
I'm saying the whole cocktail. Jalen Hurts, the way the Eagles run the offense, the way they play football, people look at it and they don't see the attempt. Again, I use Devontae Smith as an example. Devontae Smith, everybody knows, is an explosive player in this league. 916 yards. Again, to Eagles fans, that's great. They haven't seen that in years. To the average NFL offense, that's not great. And it's certainly not great for a player of that caliber. And he was healthy for the most part. He had the shoulder issue, but he was out there playing. It wasn't like he missed a bunch of games. So that was the ceiling. And you just brought up Jamar Chase. You just, look at the ceiling of Jamar Chase with Joe Burrow. Look at the ceiling of the Chargers receivers with Justin Herbert, and on and on and on. And obviously the great quarterbacks. You can look at them all, Devontae Adams, blah, blah, blah. What did Aaron Rodgers get Devontae Adams paid? Explosive offenses. And again, if you're an agent, so I'll look at this, Jody, I'll ask you this. Put on your agent's cap. You're getting your 2-3%, whatever it is these days. You're getting your 2-3% by how much money they make, not about the phony contracts that are reported on in the media when guys are spinning things. So when that third year comes around, you're going to try to put the guy in the best position to succeed so you can get your money, or not. Wouldn't you do business that way? I'll ask you.
Sure, absolutely. But again, are you just telling me agents are making the decision on the fact that the Eagles ran the ball for the last 10 games rather than the first 6?
I'm saying they're informing their clients that this is probably a better spot for you.
Right,
Allen Robinson.
Here's what my question would be for Nick Sirianni then. Can he not sell that they're going to be a better passing team next year? If you're telling me that agents and players are making their decision based on basically less than a full season's action, that the Eagles became a run-heavy team last year and that affected the wide receivers' numbers. Can Nick Sirianni not go into an agent's into a meeting with an agent and go, listen, if we got your guy, I will throw the ball more. Your guy is that good. Your guy, I'm going to make my quarterback get him the football. We're not going to be as run heavy going forward. And between you and I had a wide receiver room that wasn't quite good enough. And that's why we need a guy like you to. He can't sway that agent by
making an
impassioned
stance
right of what it's going to be.
That's a very good argument, Jody. So I'll turn it around on you. Pretend I'm the agent. I gave you that argument for my client. Now, I got a meeting with the Los Angeles Rams that I got to get to. They got Matthew Stafford. They got this high-octane offense. They got Sean McVay.
They also have Cooper Kupp and the former wide receiver from Chicago. They just signed. You want to go in there and be their number 3 rather than come here and be my 1A to Devontae Smith? Really? You think your numbers are going to be better out there in LA than here? I'm telling you, I'm going to throw the football more here than we did last year. And yeah, you're going to get more targets playing for the Philadelphia Eagles than you are the Los Angeles Rams next year, bud.
Well, Allen Robinson, that's why I brought up the Rams, was in that exact situation. Allen Robinson chose the Los Angeles Rams. Now, they're also a better team. You can throw that into the mix. Obviously, they're the reigning Super Bowl champions. They do have Cooper Kupp, but, Robert Woods, when he was healthy, had no trouble getting targets. Tyler Higbee had no problem getting targets as a tight end. When Odell came in and got his feet under him, he had no problem getting targets. They were even, when everybody was hurt at the end, they were even targeting a 7th-round draft choice, Ben Skoranek, not very successfully. But he was getting some targets.
In the Super Bowl, he's getting targets.
He was getting some targets.
Yep.
I don't know. If I'm the agent, you can make your decision. I heard your argument. I've heard Sean McVay's argument. Remember, I want to touch the hem of his garment. I'm sorry, Nick. By the way, I believe you want to throw the football more. But this is a better opportunity for my particular client at this particular time.
But by the way, and I know you don't know the answer to this. It's a quasi unfair question, but do we know the Eagles made an offer to Allen Robinson anywhere near the offer that the Los Angeles Rams did?
I know they made an offer. I don't know what the number was, but that was my last part. To get a player like that in a situation like that, that's where you have to do what Jacksonville did. That's what you had to do with Andrew Brandt back in the day. That's where, if you want to be in the conversation, you got to overpay the guy. You got to overpay the guy. That's how you get him back in and say, all right.
Do you think Robinson got a below market deal because they were the Rams, a fair market deal, or did they also have to overpay?
I think I think everybody's overpaid, but that's me. He's probably fair market. Maybe he took a little bit less, but I don't know that for a fact.
Right.
But I know the
Eagles might not have even had to overpay. They might just have had to pay fair market value if somebody else was going to come in at under.
I know the Eagles are very disciplined to a fault. So, they're not going to overpay to a ludicrous degree that you have to do to get somebody's attention. They're never going to do that. And that to me is hurting them right now at the wide receiver position. But that's it. At the wide receiver position, that's it. Nowhere else. At the wide receiver position.
Here's why I will disagree with the Eagles' overall philosophy as it stands right now, as you just described it. Every season is different. And you have to, when you get certain pieces in place on your roster and in your salary cap, there's two worlds you have to judge: the overall talent of your roster and the salary cap position you're in. Right now, the Eagles have one key advantage over a bunch of other teams they're competing with for playoff spots in the NFC. They've got a guy on the third year of a 4-year rookie deal as a second-round draft pick, which means compared to the other quarterbacks in their conference, their QB is making diddly squat, which means you should have flexibility on your overall salary cap to pick a position and go, all right, we're going to go away from our usual norm. We're going to try and have to put aside our default thinking that we're not going to overpay. We don't want to overpay. We always want to be balanced. We want to give a guy what he's worth, but we don't want to blow him out of the water just because we have to, because there's a preconceived notion of what type of team we are around the National Football League. So therefore we have to overpay. If that's what it takes, you got to overpay. If you have the ability to overpay at one position because you're severely underpaying at another position, well, then it kind of balances out in the wash. And the Eagles don't seem to want to pay for the wide receiver position, and I think they kind of need to.
Well, I even said sometimes they're disciplined, which I think is a good thing, really the vast majority of the time. Sometimes they're disciplined to a fault. Sometimes you got to understand where you are. I always say one of the toughest things is to self-evaluate and be honest with yourself. And with the Eagles in professional sports, they got to understand where they are at the wide receiver position. But I also say this, Jody, man, I know a lot of fans like to think players look around and they say, well, and we just went through this with Deshaun Watson. Well, Cleveland has the best roster. Nobody's looking around at who has the best roster. Nobody. I go back to Aaron Rodgers. Now, Aaron Rodgers, right? He likes to tell you how smart he is. He is a smart guy. I'm not going to, for all the people that want to criticize him for other issues, he is a very smart guy, but he's not shy about it. He likes to tell you about it. Very cocky, understandably so. Think about what Aaron Rodgers got upset. The original part of why he got upset with the Green Bay Packers. Because they cut Jake Kumaro. Who? Jake Kumaro. He was upset by it. And think about Aaron Rodgers when he started talking about he wants to be involved with the decision making on the offensive side, and he wants Randall Cobb back. Really? 157-year-old Randall Cobb, who was a good player when he was young.
By the way, can we get Randall Cobb?
Yeah, well.
Yeah, I'll take Randall Cobb.
Yeah, he's
now.
a good player here, but not a good player there for that setup. But and you know, can you get your money? Can you get that third year? Can you get that fourth year? And then, as I said, you have agents steering you in a particular directions. They're the ones giving you the information, and they only get paid if you get that third year, the fourth. If you don't get that third year money, they don't get their third year money. They don't get their fourth year money. So they try to steer things in a certain direction. And until the Eagles prove that they can throw the ball consistently, if they want to be disciplined, and they want to be disciplined, they're going to miss out on these top tier receivers on the free agent market. Now, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. I think it's good they missed out on Christian Kirk, to be honest. I think it's good. I don't think that would have worked out. Allen Robinson, I don't think it's as good.
All right, so let me ask you about one guy in particular, John, because I hear the explanation you're making, and it makes a ton of sense. But there are some exceptions to the rule, and I'm going to call the Eagles on the exception to the rule. A guy whose name you threw out here a lot. You were not alone. I'm not trying to just pin this on you. Whole bunch of Eagle reporters threw this name out as a guy who made sense, who fit for the Philadelphia, who would be the upgrade that they need. But it's not Allen Robinson, which they're going to have to overpay for. We know the Eagles don't overpay. DJ Chark. Why is DJ Chark not a Philadelphia Eagle? He signed with the Detroit Lions. And if the Eagles are an organization that wide receivers are staying away from like they've got the plague, why would anyone sign with the Detroit Lions to go catch balls from Jared Goff and that team, who is, again, if they're not looking at what the team achieved the year before, Eagles were in the playoffs, Lions are drafting number 2 in this upcoming draft. Why is DJ Chark a Detroit Lion and not a Philadelphia Eagle?
Well, and I don't put him in the category because I don't think the Eagles made him an offer. So everything,
do I have to restate my question? Why didn't the Eagles make DJ Chark an offer?
But because my assessment is they didn't like the player. I always say everything's about evaluation. And if you're not in the mix, he got 1 year, $10 million from the Lions. I had heard, I think New England made him an offer. And there was another team. And he chose the Lions. A lot of us, and I was one of them, and I can't speak for everybody, but we before free agency starts, we look at who's going to be available, and we say, all right, well, the Eagles typically want the guy coming off the rookie deal. So DJ's like 25 or 26 or whatever. He's coming off the rookie deal. He had some injuries, so he still got some upside. He had a big year. He had one big year with a bad organization and a bad situation. So you say, well, that guy would make some sense for the Eagles. I don't know if anybody, I didn't see if anybody did reported the Eagles had interest in the kid, actual interest, as was reported, with Ridley and Robinson and Kirk and now Woods. So, the better question is, why didn't they like the player? I can't answer, but that would be my answer. They just didn't like the player. Now I'd rather have DJ Chark than every Eagles receiver but Devontae Smith.
Not named Devontae Smith.
Yeah. But I can't tell you as to why they don't like the player, but they certainly didn't go after him. And by the way, even if they decided, all right, DJ Chark is a guy who can fit and is a guy who can help us, I don't think they'd be paying him with the discipline, with his record of coming off, I think it was a fractured ankle last year, missed most of last year, coming off the injury. I don't think they would have paid him $10 million anyway. So if it got to the money, which it never did, I think they would have been too disciplined for him as well. Right. So over disciplined, maybe.
You're not doing anything for my confidence that the Eagles are going to be able to upgrade at wide receiver during this offseason, unless they use one of the 3 first-round draft picks they have. And we've sat here and speculated basically since the season ended that they probably will not use all 3, that they'll trade down with 1 and get out of the first round and only make 2 picks, but add extra draft capital, or trade out and send a first-round pick this year for a future first-round pick and maybe another pick this year. We go through the scenarios where the Eagles go from 3 draft picks to 2 draft picks, and when you're down to 2, are they really going to use 1 on a wide receiver for the 3rd consecutive year? You talk about judging the Eagles and the trends with which they've built this team since Howie Roseman took over. He doesn't. I don't think he liked. I think they just had too big a report on Devontae Smith that they couldn't turn away from it. That they thought he was one of the best players in the draft and they could get into a position to take him. I don't think they really wanted to go back to wide receiver again last year, but they had to, in part because Jalen Reagor kind of showed what he was and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside kind of was what he was. So I'll give them credit for at least acknowledging, we still need wide receiver help. Howie, if you're watching, you still need wide receiver help. Sorry to say, big guy, as tough as you may be in taking stands and disciplined, John's favorite word, which is dead on accurate, as disciplined as you may want to be and you may want to stay, you still need help at the wide receiver position. McMullen and McDonald, your Mac Birds 365 guys coming back. Couple of other moves around the National Football League. Yeah, the quarterback carousel continues to spin, and although some people are quite happy that the Eagles are staying with Jalen Hurts, there are others that are ready to move on. Maybe some ready to move on after the way Johnny Mack told us that the reason they can't get a wide receiver is because they've got the offense they've got right now, which is led by Jalen Hurts. He's still their QB. We'll talk about the other quarterback moves in the league when we come back here on Birds 365.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
John McMullen, Jody McDonald, your Mac and Mac 365 guys here on Birds. We'll chat you up for another, about 40 minutes or so before we're joined by our one and only guest today. He's a good one. Bo Wulf, who covers the Eagles for The Athletic, will be aboard in hour number 2. All right, Johnny, I do want to get into the quarterbacks, but I got one more question for you on the wide receivers and the perception of the Philadelphia Eagles, and that they might be at a disadvantage as compared to other teams. They're out there making bids for wide receivers. A guy who I lobbied for here on Birds and on WIP and other places where I broadcast, which I thought would have been a nice fit with the Eagles, was Wilson, the kid from Dallas, who was their wide receiver 4, who I thought if he came in here, Cedric Wilson would move right to wide receiver 2. He ended up signing with the Miami Dolphins, and Tua's had the career that he's had to this point. He and Jalen Hurts used to be teammates at Alabama. I know that Tua was a first-round pick as compared to Jalen as a second-round pick, but their numbers off last year are relatively equal, and Wilson decided to go to Miami. If you're going to tell me it's, again, no state taxes, okay, then guess what, Howie? You're going to have to overpay a little bit. If, yes, it comes down to competition between you and the Dolphins, and the Dolphins, the agent is telling you, well, he'd rather go to Miami because he doesn't have to pay state wage tax. All right, well, then you got to juice your offer a little bit, Howie. But, again, if they're over-disciplined, so be it. What's going to change the narrative, John? What has to change for the Eagles not to be a team that has to overpay to get a quality wide receiver to join this franchise?
Success on the field, demonstrated performance, as coaches like to say, on the field. Prove you can get a receiver at 1,300 yards. Prove it. Show it to everybody. Show the evaluation that Jalen Hurts is still an ascending quarterback as a thrower and will have the ability. It'll change on a dime. It's not like it's a multi-year process. Have success on the field. Prove you're an explosive offense. Prove receivers can be a big part of it. And they won't have an issue at all because they're regarded as a good organization by the vast majority of agents around this league. People are going to make a big thing out of Kenny Pickett's pro day yesterday because, the Eagles were the ones who picked up the tab at dinner for Kenny Pickett. So they're going to say, oh, the Eagles are buying Kenny Pickett dinner. They're just a first-class organization. That's how they do things. Right. That's what it means more than anything else. They're highly regarded as an organization, but that doesn't mean, again, an agent is going to steer a player or a player is going to steer himself here when he has an opportunity. And the best example of this, again, would be Allen Robinson when he has an opportunity to play in a high-octane offense with a high-volume thrower, as I call them. Just not it's that kind of stuff isn't going to resonate. Now, I will say that everybody knows Nick Sirianni wants to run a different kind of offense. So the ability to change this thing can shift really, really dramatically. But I think it's telling that plan A for the Eagles, and by the way, if it worked, none of us we wouldn't be talking about this, Jody. Plan A for the Eagles was to trade for Calvin Ridley. And if it worked, everybody would be happy, and they should be happy. But the trade of it was a key part of it because you didn't have to worry about the other stuff.
Right.
And that's part of the reason that they went down that route. And unfortunately, it didn't work. And then you got to try to pivot. And the pivoting hasn't worked.
So, again, you're just saying the egg has to come before the chicken. They have to go out and get
you got to
put the numbers up to swing the opinion of agents for
or
next year.
overpay to a ludicrous that you could do, but they're not going to do that. So I don't, if you say, pay Christian Kirk, Jacksonville's giving you this outrageous contract, we're going to go even higher. You could have got Christian Kirk. They're not going to do that. So, we could talk about it, but I don't think it means much because how
Right.
disciplined they are. They're not going to do it. And by the way, I don't think they should do it.
Nor do I. I brought up Christian Kirk how many times here on the show, and then I saw the contract and said, "What the hell? Are you kidding me? That's what Christian Kirk costs on the open market." Well, as soon as one team makes the offer and he accepts it, that's what he costs on the open market. We can all have our beliefs and our facts and our figures and our projections in place, and they go by the wayside as soon as somebody gets a deal for more than we expected. Do have one question for you on deals. You mentioned that we have not yet been able to unearth Zach Pascal's deal. You're thinking if it's the veteran minimum with incentives tied to it, that's probably the ballpark. We got to wait and see on this. Maybe the Eagles actually felt a little desperate when all these other wide receiver deals started going by them. Some by their own machinations, others out of their control, like Calvin Ridley. That maybe that we better get Zach Pascal. We're looking at an offer here if we don't get. At least we should be able to get Zach Pascal. So we don't know what his deal is yet. We'll wait to find out. I also couldn't find what Anthony Harris's deal was. The Eagles are not obligated to come out with any of these figures for us to chew on and evaluate and the like. As you've correctly pointed out many times here on the show, the first blush that you get on a contract is usually agent released, and they want to put it out there in the best possible spin to make themselves look good. And then you find out thereafter did you and I discuss? I don't think we even discussed this yesterday. The reporting of the Juju Smith contract.
I don't think we did. But
the first report that came out was a $10 million contract, 1 year, over 10 million and change. And within less than 24 hours, it was re-reported as, it's a $3 million contract with over $7 million in incentives. Now, they may be very reachable incentives. He may end up making his $1 million. But what happens if he turns an ankle week 1 and can't play for 8, 9, 10 weeks? All those incentives become very tough to get. And it's now a $3 million contract instead of a 10. So you have to take all these reported contracts with a grain of salt. But the last 2 players that the Eagles acquired, we do not know what their contract numbers are. What do you think that means?
It doesn't mean much. It takes a while to file things with the union, and when they process it, and that's when we get the full deal. For instance, to give a perfect example of this, Hassan Reddick's contract, the first time I saw the actual details to that were today, this morning. So that's kind of the timing of this stuff. It takes a little bit of a while to get the intricacies of these deals. And Reddick's probably a great example because, now I forget what it was reported as, 5 years, whatever.
No, 3, right?
3 years. Yeah, sorry, 3 years. It's actually a 6-year deal. So vice versa. It's a 6-year.
The voidable years on the back end?
3 voidable years. So it's a 6-year deal, but really it's a 2-year deal, like everything else. The cap hits in 2022 is $4 million, right? Great. 2023, $6.8 million. 2024, $20.5 million.
That's never happening.
Yeah.
He is never getting to the third year of that contract. It's either renegotiated or released.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm trying to say. Essentially, unless you're Deshaun Watson, Kirk Cousins had the 3-year guaranteed contract back a few years ago, fully guaranteed. Unless you're a quarterback, very few players get that 3rd year. They're really 2-year deals, and then we'll talk about it. And if you succeed in those first 2 years, like Hassan Reddick, and he performs, the Eagles will keep him, but they're redoing the deal.
They got to redo the deal.
Yeah, they're redoing the deal. So you have to perform to get that third year. And then you can, if you perform, you'll probably get a year tacked on as well. And it'll keep rolling over and rolling over. So it's not like you can't get there, but 90+% of these deals, and probably higher number than that, are the team has an out after that second year. In the case with Hassan Reddick, $4 million cap number. That's pretty good.
Yeah, for
year.
year 1 and year 2, that's a very reasonable deal. So they got to figure out. And then what we don't want to look at, but we need to look at is dead cap hits, because that's, if they move away from Hassan Reddick, they can't come to an agreement on a renegotiated deal after 2 years and they have to release him. Well, then that's a big time cap hit, dead cap hit that you have to take. It's really weird what the Eagles ended up doing last week, because they take a huge dead cap hit with Fletcher Cox and then bring Fletcher Cox back. So that ends up being something that Howie Roseman has got to work around in putting a cap year together. It gets both confusing and difficult. And I think our guy Brad Spielberger was on with us yesterday, did a pretty good job of laying it out there for us. Anthony Harris, that also I looked around, I can't find it anywhere as to what his 1-year deal is. You think he's going to be making the same as he made last year, more than he made last year? Because the Eagles right now are very shorthanded, and that's what scares me a little bit about this Zach Pascal thing. I'm going to say it's going to be more than the veteran minimum in just his base salary. And then I'm with you. I think there'll be incentive to probably raise it up. I'm thinking the Eagles could be worried that we can't get left with nothing, and that's why they got Anthony Harris done now. And to get him done, maybe they had to pay him more than they did last year. More or less same Anthony Harris when the details come out, this upcoming contract as compared to last year's.
Boy, I think he got $4 million last year.
I think it was a 1-year, $4 million deal. Yeah.
I think he's going to get less than that with the opportunity to make the same, essentially. I don't think there was a big market for him. And the one thing I've talked about, the one thing the Eagles are really good at is valuation, not evaluation, valuation. They know what everybody's worth in the market they have, and they do a really, really good job with that. So I'm gonna say he's making less with the opportunity to make the same as what he did last year. Would be my guess.
But I'll revisit something you said in the first hour of the show. Sometimes they're disciplined to a fault.
Oh yeah. No
and
question.
That valuation that you just described is good. And a lot of times it helps the Eagles. 2 deals that have come down here in the last couple of weeks, last week, getting Fletcher Cox done at less than he was scheduled to make this year, creating more cap flexibility. That's valuation. That's good. Boston Scott, I thought they should have given him the tender. They didn't. They got him back at less than the tender, so that saved a couple of $100,000, which gives them more salary cap flexibility. That's good. Who are they going to spend this money on, John? They redid Darius Slay and saved, what, $11 million by redoing his salary cap deal this year? So they got Fletcher back at less. They got Boston Scott back at less. You're telling me you think they're going to get Anthony Harris back at less? Maybe not a whole lot less, but less. Where's all this money they're saving going? Where are they going to spend it?
Well, a lot of it is first round picks. If you take 3 first round picks, if they're taking them, and I still don't think they want to, well, you got to prepare like you have to. That's a big chunk of it. If they have $20 million right now, which is about what they would have with the contracts not reported, $8 million chunk right off the top for the rookies, because of the 3 first round picks. So it's not as much as it may seem. Then you're down to $12 million, and you can do a lot of things with $12 million. As we just saw, they got a 3-year, $45 million deal with Hassan Reddick with a $4 million cap number. So you could do some things with $12 million. You can fit 4 Hassan Reddicks 3 Hassan Reddicks with $12 million. So you could do some different things. And look, we always go back to 2017 because that was the successful year. And you look at the timing on the calendar and the second wave of free agency, and they're going to make some signings and probably signings that make some people happy on more cost-effective deals. But the first wave of free agency is already over. It's over. So if you guys out there, Honey Badger would be number one, I would think, for Eagles fans. Eyeballs popping out.
Do you really think they have any kind of chance to get Honey Badger?
I don't know if they want him. I haven't heard that they want him. You know, he's a lot of, he's played a lot of football. A lot of football. I don't think he's 30 yet. I think he's 29, but he has played a lot of football, a lot of injuries, and more than one scout says he doesn't have the wheels he once had. That's just not the type of player. They want ascending. They don't want descending. I could be wrong. They, you know, if the market comes down and they can get him on a 1-year deal, I think that changes the conversation. I think they might think about that. And the longer it waits, and I got to bring up your worst nightmare, Jody McDonald. Can I bring that up? The more Derek Barnett is out there,
feel free.
The more Derek Barnett is out there, the more tells you there's no market.
There
and
is
if they
no
can
market.
get him back,
and there's no market in Philadelphia either.
If they can get him back on a 1-year deal for $5-6 million, don't slam that door shut.
No, I know a lot of people, one including my partner, who I'm looking at right now, who told me Derek Barnett is going to get paid. Quote unquote, John McMullen, Derek Barnett is going to get paid. How's that working out for you and Derek Barnett to this point?
I'm not the only one.
I didn't say you were the only one. I said many people, including my partner, John McMullen.
I thought he'd get, we do, Spotrac and Over the Cap, they do valuations. Most had, and I'll be honest, I'd lean on them. Most, because they do the research. I don't have time to look at the league, and they look at the trends. And most had them getting about $8 to $9 million a year, 3-year deal. Hasn't worked out. I'll go back to Alshon Jeffrey. Most people had Alshon Jeffrey at the time getting $17 million a year. $17 million a year was the valuation on Alshon Jeffrey at the time the Eagles signed him. He took a 1-year prove-it deal because the market wasn't there. I think it was maybe $9 million. I have to look it up.
But I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sometimes the market doesn't develop. And all of a sudden, you got to readjust and say, all right, let me find some place where I can get a 1-year deal, get back to the market, play well, get back to the market as quickly as possible. That's what happened. Alshon got his extension here.
Right. I was going to say, great valuation of the Eagles on the 1-year deal. But then when you turn around and give them the multi-year, that many $1 million deal thereafter, it kind of wipes away the great valuation of the 1-year deal, does it not?
Yeah. But the market, you never know, man, with these markets. I mean, certain guys, it shocks you how many teams are interested, and other guys, nobody's interested, and they come down. And it's always something like we only have, even in the media, we only have certain information. Like there's a lot of information we don't have. It's best identified in the draft, where there's always these guys like, last year was the kid from Notre Dame, the linebacker, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who's a hell of a player.
Yeah,
hell of a player. He should have been a first-round pick. And we all had him, top 15, and this kid is tremendous, and this kid can play. And all of a sudden he starts falling and starts falling and starts falling. And Cleveland gets a heck of a player in the second round. We're like, well, what the hell happened to JOK? Turns out he had some kind of heart thing, and people were worried about it. A lot of teams were worried about it, weren't willing to take the risk in the first round. We don't have that information, so there's no stinking way we can predict JOK is going to fall to the second round. Same, yeah, with Alshon, it was really the PED suspension more than anything else. Teams were concerned about him in the future, and the money just wasn't there for him. There's always reasons for these types of things, but my point of bringing up the worst nightmare, the longer Derek Barnett stays out there, the more likely he's coming back.
Here's the reason why Derek Barnett is not coming back to the Philadelphia Eagles and not getting a multi-year deal with anybody else. If you're a defensive end, standard defensive end, your 4-3 defensive end, not a edge rushing fourth outside linebacker defensive end, an edge player. He's a defensive end. If you're not like well above average in one of the two facets of the game, either getting to the quarterback and getting sacks and or ability to stop the run. If you're not a well above average in either one, and oh, by the way, my evaluation of Derek Barnett is he's not well above average in either two facets of that game, well, then you're a situational substitution guy. And if you're a situational substitution guy, you're not a multi-year contract guy.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about a multi-year contract now. I said, if the longer he starts on the market, you're right. The longer he stays on the market, the more likely he is to come back on a 1-year deal for $5-6 million, which is exactly what you said. That's what a rotational guy gets paid. That's my point. The more he's out there and he's not getting the 3-year deal for $27 million, which was the valuation. If he's not getting that deal, the more he's out there, the more likely it's coming down. The more likely he's going to sign a 1-year deal. Now, he'll probably want to go for $8-9 million. But if it keeps coming down, 6, 5, oh, the Eagles will be in. They'll look at that and say, wow, that's a pretty good value.
The reason why you might be onto something is, this is one of my concerns with the Philadelphia Eagles as of right now, raised up a couple levels because of yesterday's signing. Familiarity seems to count for a lot.
Oh, it does.
And
it does.
That you talk about to a fault, the fact that they're disciplined to a fault. I think they could be familiarity based to a fault. If the coaches know you, if the coaches worked with you before, if they've got a better understanding of you
Zach
because
Pascal.
they coach you rather than that's what I'm getting at. That's why Zach Pascal is here. That there's no way you could look at what Zach Pascal has done in his NFL career and go, "Ooh, we got to get him for our team." No, he's here for one reason and one reason only. The coach loves him because he worked hard in practice for him in Indianapolis. I want players who put up numbers. I want players who get it done on Sunday. I don't want players who are good guys around the locker room and work hard and have a dog mentality. Give me guys who produce.
Mentality.
Give me numbers getters, not getters.
I'm just pointing it out to warn you, Jody, because the longer he stays out there, the more likely it becomes.
And I guess there's a number that it could come down to that I would go, all right, you know what the hell? I'd take him back just because somebody's got to play these reps. You got to have somebody play him. And if he's coming on the cheap, the quote unquote acceptable number, believable number for Derek Barnett was going to be multi-year over $8 million. He gets down to 3. Okay, yeah, I'll take him again. As much as I'm an anti-Derek Barnett guy, that's below going rate. And if you can get a player below going rate with some familiarity to the coaches, okay, fine. But I was one of those guys who said, no. Multi-year, above $8 or $9 million, Derek Barnett, not for me. I wouldn't sign that kind of contract with him. And
yeah, a lot of it obviously has to do, and yeah, here comes the Hassan Reddick deal. With the position, edge rushers just get paid in this league, and that's why you do the research, and that's why those guys do it the way they do it, and they look at previous years and they say, okay, this is what this edge rusher got. But sometimes sometimes you overevaluate the player, and everybody in the league says something. It might be something as simple as the penalties. The perception becomes reality. We all know. I mean, the raw numbers are not nearly as bad as fans think they are, but perception sort of overcomes reality with NFL teams at times as well. Could be something as little as that. Well, we don't want to deal with that. I remember covering Andrew Sandejo when he was good. Eagles fans don't know he was actually good at one point. He was, if he played in the 70s and 80s, he would have been a superstar, man. He would kill people. He would just kill people. But you're not allowed to do that now. And when you're getting 15-yard flags every other game, it takes a big bite out of your effectiveness, because then you start getting suspensions. I talked to John Runyon about Andrew specifically. And I always found it ironic, because John Runyon, let's be honest, was a dirty player, man. He was a dirty player. And it's amazing the job he has now. They have completely morphed the game, and it's just a different generation. And he would have been more valued if he was born in a different time. But there's little things. And in the case of Derek Barnett, maybe the penalties really had an effect.
I think they did. And 46 tackles, I'm sorry, for a guy who's taking the great majority of the snaps. What do you think the percentage of snaps played was for Derek Barnett this year? I know it's a situational substitution position, so nobody's going to play 100 snaps, but he was, I got to believe, north of 75%, wasn't he?
Yeah, he played a lot. I'm trying to remember if he was hurt at all. It all kind of goes together. Derek's missed a lot of time over the years with various injuries. That's another part of it, by the way. That's probably a bigger part of it. He's had a really big problem with injuries over the years and not being able to stay on the field. Best ability is availability, as Chip Kelly used to love to say, and that's a big part of it. He stayed relatively healthy last year. I know he played more than Sweat. So I'm trying to think. Brandon got hurt. So yeah, he played the most out of any Eagles defensive end.
And 46 tackles does not jump off the page for me. 2 sacks jumps off the page for me more than 46 tackles. So I think the numbers kind of say he's a one-year guy at best. All right, he's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. Take a time out, come back. We still haven't talked about Matt Ryan to the Colts and Jameis Winston back to the Saints. The quarterback carousel continues to spin in the NFL without the Eagles being involved on any of it. We do have Bo Wulf joining us shortly as well here on Birds 365.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today, and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
John McMullen, Jody McDonald here with you on Birds 365. Yeah, I just had you got me looking up the numbers for Derek Barnett. Do you realize that Hassan Reddick has more sacks in the last 2 years than Derek Barnett has in his 5 years combined in the National Football League?
Yeah, he's not a finisher. That's my, I've said for years, the Eagles, they haven't had finishers. They haven't had finishers for a long time. You got to go back to Connor Barwin, Connor assistant to GM Howie Roseman now. The last time they had a real big finisher on the edge. And that's a trait. That really is. I mean, there are certain guys who can, I talk about pressures a lot, but there's certain guys who get home and they do it consistently, double digits every year. Jared Allen, I got to cover him. He's going to be in a Hall of Fame one day. I mean, he just every year. I mean, you could plug in 13 sacks on a bad year. There are certain guys like that, and the Eagles haven't had one for a long time. And they're hoping Hassan Reddick is that type of finisher, and he has been for the past 2 years.
Yep.
But he's playing a different position. I think people don't realize he's not going to play Derek Barnett's position. He's not going to be a weak side rusher. He's going to be a Sam linebacker sort of hybrid edge rusher. And it's something Eagles fans haven't seen for a long time. So hopefully it works out.
Either it will or it won't. And Jonathan Gannon is the guy who is the driving force behind this. I got to believe he was the one who said, yeah, let's get this guy. I know how to use him. I've got a system that I can implement that will get his strengths out of him, even though it might not be something that the Eagles have always used. I'm going to be able to use it next year, and we'll see if Reddick fits. I love the signing. I thought it was a smart one on the Eagles' part. And if it keeps Derek Barnett from coming back on anything more than a 1 year, $3.5 million deal, I'm okay with that. All right, quarterbacks around the league. Big deal yesterday. Matt Ryan gets dealt to the Indianapolis Colts. It takes a little piece of ignominy. Help me with the word here, John.
I don't know what you're looking for. Ignominy is a word, but what are you looking for?
I think it's ignominy. Of being the team that had the biggest dead cap hit in the history of the National Football League. Eagles with
they broke it. Yeah,
it went by the board yesterday because the Falcons now own that title.
The Eagles precedent setters. Yeah, as soon as somebody sets the precedent, well, we can do it. And you got to give the Eagles credit. And that's another one I got wrong. I don't mind admitting when I get them wrong. Me and Andrew Brandt, we'll take the hits on that. Yeah, as soon as somebody does it, somebody goes, oh, well, we can do it. And now the Falcons are over 40 million. And by the way, the Eagles took a massive dead hit this year again with Fletcher Cox. Even though they redid the deal. So it's a new era. Teams are willing. And the Eagles are part of that because the Eagles prove you can take on all that dead money and still make the playoffs, and reset sort of, that's how I described it, reset your salary cap situation pretty quickly. So, you know, you have this sort of debate on Twitter that some people say the salary cap isn't real, the salary cap, and other people say the salary cap is, you know, so important. You can't do this, you can't do that. And as usual, both things, it's somewhere in the middle. It is real.
It's an accordion. It comes in, it comes out, it comes in, it comes out.
Yeah.
You just have to play on tune. And for the most part, I think Howie Roseman plays on tune. I think he's very good at salary cap management. Every once in a while, I'm not afraid to call Harry on the carpet and go, yeah, I think this is a mistake.
Oh, well, and usually it has to do, look, they're honest. I mean, they when they won the Super Bowl, they thought the championship window was open for another one, and they probably thought it was open a little bit too long. They probably went with it a little bit too long instead of turning things over, and that's a really difficult evaluation to make. And then they turned it over, and we're in the middle of that process. And the Rams, another perfect example. They're like, well, we got a chance to go win one. Let's go win one. And they did. And at some point, I always say sports are cyclical, Jody. It'll turn over for the Rams, and they'll have their issues when players start to age out, and happens quicker in football than anywhere else. I mean, you got a guy who people think, and that's where, you know, big names come into it. Because I always, first thing when somebody cuts a big name, first thing on Twitter to me, Eagles have any interest in insert name? This league moves at the speed of light. Just because you were a good player 2 years ago doesn't mean you're a good player today. And maybe that's what we're kind of talking about with Tyrann Mathieu, who I still think could help this team dramatically. But he's not the player he once was. He's not the player fans think he was, or think he is. Now, is he still an upgrade? Yeah. So that's the difficult decision you have to weigh. How much more is he going to be effective, and that type of thing? That's the hard part.
And then there's Tom Brady, who belies everything that John McMullen just said, and everything that everybody believes.
But remember, Jody, the exception proves the rule. It is not the rule. That Tom Brady, people looking for Tom Brady, good luck. Good luck.
He is a true unicorn that can't be compared to anybody else, because John's overall read on the league is right. You can go from a really highly regarded and productive player and pretty damn quickly become a guy who's just blatantly overpaid and the team wants to move on from. It can happen like that. And then there's Tom Brady, who plays at the level that he plays at for 20
By the
plus
way,
years.
Tampa Bay, playoff Lenny's back. So
he re-signed with the Bucs.
Yeah. So Tom Brady.
Belichick was trying to steal him from Tommy, right? They got involved in the bidding, but he's sticking with Tampa.
So Tampa Bay is still relevant.
That's another positive. John is explaining to me how and why the Eagles can't get their hands on a wide receiver. That's just another thing that Tom Brady does for you.
I got Zach Pascal. I'd see Bo Wulf in the green room. He's excited.
He gets players to rejoin with him. We're not sure that Jalen Hurts has that recruitment power just yet. All right, McMullen and McDonald, quickie timeout. We come back. Bo Wulf from The Athletic joins us here on Birds 365.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Bird 365, guys. Here we are on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel where you should like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, John. To our show and all the shows on the channel. Hey, we're upgrading here. We've got a guy joining us who absolutely positively has that dog mentality. And that's why we bring him on. That's why the Eagles brought in Zach Pascal. You got to have that dog mentality. Bo Wulf joined us here on Birds 365. How you doing, dog?
Woof, woof. How are you? How are you guys?
Good, Bo. So I'm going to play a game.
Love a game.
Who doesn't belong in this category? And we'll go Calvin Ridley, Allen Robinson, Christian Kirk, Robert Woods, Zach Pascal. Are you excited about the most obvious Eagles free agent signing of all time?
I would say Calvin Ridley is the one who doesn't belong because everybody else is eligible to play this year.
Yeah, play this year.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. This was like, this is the news of the Eagles signing Zach Pascal was like, hey, breaking news, the sun rose today, right? Like everybody knew this was coming. And it's like, it's easy to make fun of because it was so obvious and because Sirianni has talked so much about Pascal in the past and because he is not like a very productive receiver. He's like, we've described him on Birds with Friends as he's like the Jalen Hurts of wide receivers because you always hear that Jalen Hurts is good at everything that you want from a quarterback except throwing the ball. And Zach Pascal is like good at everything you want from a wide receiver except getting open and catching the ball. He's a great blocker. He's got that dog mentality. He runs the right routes. But I mean, his production, his routes, his yards per route run are like, I forget exactly what it is. It's like 98th of 111 over the past two seasons. And that's not just Carson Wentz last year. That's over the past two seasons. But the flip side is the two guys who are below him are Jalen Reagor and Greg Ward. So this is a marginal upgrade for a team that needed some like baseline of competency at wide receiver. I think it's a reasonable thing to do. Obviously, I'm expecting it's not going to be a very expensive deal. I think it's going to be hopefully, relatively close to the veteran minimum. And if that's the case,
you're safe there, Bo.
Right. And if that's the case, now you can pencil in Zach Pascal as your third receiver with every expectation that whether it's in free agency or in the draft, you're going to find somebody who's pushing him down to wide receiver 4, and that's totally fine.
Fair enough. The Eagles, the stats you just gave about yards per reception are what they are, and they kind of stand starkly against an offense that's supposedly wants to throw the football some. They made a decision in season last year that they needed to run the football more because they weren't throwing it effectively enough. If there are 3 reasons why the Eagles were as bad as they were yards per reception, and they added a guy who's certainly not moving the needle upwards in Zach Pascal. Give me the percentage breakdown of these three areas. The wide receivers are just not talented enough. They're not good enough. The quarterback isn't talented enough. He isn't good enough to throw it. And the scheme that they're using doesn't raise up, implement, put the players in position to make catches down the field. They're going to raise that average yard per catch. Give me the percentage breakdown on those three as to why the Eagles are right now on paper maybe the worst team in the National Football League in that category.
That's interesting because you can imagine like an alternate universe where Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, and call it Zach Pascal are playing with like Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady, and they're still very good. That said, you could also imagine like Jalen Hurts playing with, I don't know, Tyreek Hill
and Juju Smith-Schuster.
Right, exactly, and they would be better.
Kelsey, yes.
But I think you probably do put more on the quarterback, also because that's the scheme that they have to play with this quarterback. So I would go something like 50% on the quarterback, and then like the scheme you have to play because of him is like 30%, and then the receivers at 20%. How about that?
Okay.
All right, so we're going to blame it on Jalen. So what are we talking about, Bo? Now, the Eagles took Kenny Pickett out to dinner last night, so everybody's going to make a big deal.
So they could all make fun of his small hands
small
as he
hands,
ate food.
exactly.
You do think he ordered sliders
like
instead of a burger?
I
like
said that's why the Eagles wanted to be there, to take a look at the tiny little hands. And
his agent told him to order small food to make the hands look bigger.
Yeah.
My question would be, did he wear gloves during dinner last night?
Yeah.
Did he
That's true.
keep the gloves on all the way through sliders?
Could he handle the steak knife? I think that was the brilliance behind the Eagles' plan.
And the Eagles had the restaurant turn up the air conditioning really cold so that like they could see how he would handle the cold weather.
Exactly, because playing at Pittsburgh doesn't help in that evaluation. But nobody's going to stop talking about the quarterback for what you just said. Basically, nobody believes. I shouldn't say nobody, but there's a lot of people with question marks about Jalen Hurts and his long-term ability to be a high-level thrower in this league. I think we know he has all the intangible stuff, as you mentioned. We know he's got the ability, the off-schedule abilities, the movement skills. But Nick Sirianni's gone on record with this, Bo. His four sort of things he evaluates quarterbacks for. And number one and number two, and he mentions they're way ahead of number 3 and number 4, which are those movement skills and arm strength, are accuracy, number one, and decision making, or vice versa. I forget. But those are the key things. And when you talk about what Jody just said about the receivers and their ineffectiveness, and you're putting most of it on the quarterback, I mean, where are we with this? Are we in quarterback purgatory?
Well, I think there's a distinction because I think there are other ways to win, right? I mean, we saw it last year. I think it's probably folly to expect that Jalen Hurts can take a leap to be one of the 10 best passers in the league. But I think you can still have a top 10 offense. The Eagles had a top 10 offense last season with Jalen Hurts. If you're willing to believe that you can sustainably succeed by building around the running game and what he brings to the table, helping the running game, and I think that's fine. You know, there's some debate as to whether that will work in the playoffs down the stretch, but we saw last season that it can work. So I don't think that there is a rush to replace Jalen Hurts at this point. I think it's fine to give him another year and see if he is able to take some kind of leap, and if he can be like a top 15 passer while also bringing to the table the stuff that he does with his legs, maybe that's a recipe for sustained success. That said, I mean, watch what they do and not what they say. You know, the Eagles have publicly committed to Jalen Hurts so much, but we also know that they have explored the avenues of potentially trading for Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson. They looked into both of those things. They're looking into this quarterback class. You mentioned Kenny Pickett. I wouldn't be surprised if they add somebody because their quest and Howie Roseman's quest is to find a franchise quarterback. And what he has done this offseason tells me that they don't believe that Jalen Hurts is that guy.
Well, I'm really not trying to pile on with Jalen Hurts, but I want to get your take on this. John has attempted to convince me for the last couple of days that Deshaun Watson isn't here because he has a good relationship with Jalen Hurts, and he didn't want any part of Philadelphia because he didn't want to come in and step on Jalen Hurts' toes. Is that something Eagle fans will be complaining about? They complain enough about Jalen Hurts as it is. If he's the guy who kept them from getting Deshaun Watson, is that only going to make it tougher to be the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles for Jalen Hurts in this town?
Well, if that's the case, then I'm going to write Jalen Hurts a thank you note because I'm very happy that Deshaun Watson is not in Philadelphia. But I don't know if that is the reason. I haven't done the reporting on that. I've heard those rumors as well. But I think that, like, if from an Eagles perspective, I would imagine that Jeffrey Lurie is a little bit frustrated that these two quarterbacks now have both viewed Philadelphia as not a destination worth even considering from what we understand. So, I think Jeffrey Lurie wants to think of the Eagles as a premier franchise and to be sort of cast aside without really much of a consideration by both of those guys, and also to have not been able to land a few of the bigger ticket free agents they've pursued. I think probably stings their ego a little bit.
Yeah, you're right with the wide receivers as well. And with Deshaun, I just want to clarify that it was, if there weren't other options, he would have considered the Eagles. But once there were no criminal charges were taken off the table, you have this explosion of interest, and he has a good relationship with Jalen Hurts. And by the way, Bo, if the Eagles were allowed to bid, Jeffrey Lurie wasn't going to that contract anyway. So even if they got to that table, I don't think he would have been the first 5-year fully guaranteed guy, although he did take on the biggest dead money cap hit. The Eagles finally lost that to Matt Ryan yesterday, but so you never know.
Yeah, I feel like once you cross the threshold of pursuing Deshaun Watson at all, I'm not willing to give you any kind of benefit of the doubt.
So you think he would have went that high if need be?
I don't know. I don't know. But once you like dip your toe in that waters, you're probably willing to go all the way to dive all the way in, right? It's not like if you're willing to go after this guy who still has 22 civil suits against him and is like credibly at best like not a great guy. I mean, just to be fair.
It's a good way to describe it.
I'm trying to be as
Wulf, are you suggesting that you can't be partially pregnant? You either got to be in or you're out.
Yeah. I think so. Like I don't think you can. I don't think you can be like Deshaun Watson curious. I feel like once you've crossed that threshold, you want to make the move.
Well, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And if the Eagles couldn't get at the bargaining table, which is evident, he wouldn't waive his no trade clause. That maybe turns out to be a good thing for the Eagles. But I do want to talk about the receivers because there is that narrative that receivers don't want to come here. And I think you're right. The Eagles certainly don't want to be looked upon as an organization where people don't want to come to. And I think by and large, that's not the case. I think right now at the receiver position, it is the case. You look at Devontae Smith, sets an Eagles record, certainly great for this organization, whatever it was, 916 yards. Let's be honest. If he's with Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert, he's up at 1,300, 1,400 yards if he can stay healthy. Our teams, our agents, our players just looking at the Eagles right now and saying, well, at this particular position, and more agents, obviously, are they just steering people in other directions? Because ultimately, if you're a receiver in this league, you need traffic to have success and make big money.
I'm sort of on the fence on this because I feel like, yes, it's true that if you're looking for like a 1-year rebound deal to rebuild your value, the Eagles is probably not the best place to do that. However, like they're also going to sign for whatever the top offer is. So maybe it's the case that like if the offers are equal, you probably choose to play for the Rams over the Eagles for sure. But like if the Eagles were willing to pay an extra $1.5 million to Allen Robinson, would he have signed with the Eagles? I don't know. Probably, right? I mean, I wouldn't imagine that they're in the business of leaving money on the table. Maybe Allen Robinson is not the best example because he's played with such bad quarterbacks his whole career that maybe he was desperate to play with a good quarterback. Yeah. But, DJ Chark signing a 1-year, $10 million deal with the Lions, like, is Jared Goff much better than the Eagles? I mean, that tells me the Eagles weren't very interested in him.
Yeah, I went there with DJ Chark earlier, so you and I are seeing that exactly the same. All right, one of my favorite times here on the show, Jody Mack hypothetical question. And there are always layers to it, so I'll lay it out for you, Mr. Wolf. When the Philadelphia Eagles get to the draft some 5 weeks and change from now, when they're on the clock, be it either 15, 16, 19, you can either pick or choose for me how many picks they're going to make. If you say that, Jody, no way they're taking all 3. They're going to trade one into next year. They're going to trade one out of the first round. You can lay it out any way that you want, and there will be a player on the board that is worthy of that level pick at every position. Let's say they take 2. What 2 positions will the Eagles fill? If there is, and this is, yes, very, very already defined question. There's a safety that merits being taken as a safety. There's a wide receiver there. There's a linebacker there. There's a defensive end. There's a defensive tackle, offensive line. Whatever position you want, there's a guy that you're not reaching for to get. By the time we get to the draft, what 2 positions will the Eagles fill?
Well, I think that you guys have experienced enough Howie Roseman drafts to know what he prioritizes. And so my answer to that is defensive end and defensive tackle. I think all things equal, he's adding to that defensive line. That's how he wants to build this thing. Safety would be nice, but I don't think the Eagles fully trust their ability to evaluate that position in the draft. Maybe the first round's a little different because it's a higher caliber prospect. Corner, to me, is a possibility. I think that, like, if there was a corner who was graded slightly higher, they would be willing to do it. But all things being equal, I think that we know the positions that they value are defensive line. And so, to me, you're looking at defensive end, defensive tackle.
Bo, let's talk about safety. Are you a little surprised? I think we all kind of thought, well, the Eagles will probably bring one of the 2 starters back. And it looks like they've chosen Anthony Harris. There's always a chance Rodney will be back, but I was at the Maxwell Football Awards, and he wasn't talking like he thought he was coming back. So are you surprised at all that it's Anthony Harris and not Rodney McLeod?
I am. What you said is exactly what my expectation was, that they would bring back one of these 2 guys, and it would probably be Rodney McLeod because my expectation was he would be a little bit cheaper. There is that sentimentality, and my guess is that he would be more willing to transition to a part-time role, whereas I think Anthony Harris is going to expect to be a full-time starter. I mean, he rotated last year with Marcus Epps just like Rodney McLeod did, so it's not like he's flying in blind there. But yeah, I am a little bit surprised. Now Anthony Harris is a year or 2 younger than Rodney McLeod. I don't know. I feel like if the price was equal, you probably go with Anthony Harris, but Rodney McLeod's got an extra year coming off the torn ACL. I don't think it would have been crazy to bring him back instead.
2-parter question for me, Bo, and one of them is going to be at least a guess. Need some heavy speculation on it from you. Derek Barnett will be signing with what team and for how many years at about what dollar range?
I think he's signing a 1-year deal just because the understanding of him not signing yet tells me the interest is pretty tepid. So I would imagine he wants an opportunity to get back into the free agent market next year after rebuilding his value. If I was him, I would go to that defensive line resurgency program in San Francisco. Go over there, juice up your sack numbers, and hit the road next, or hit the free agency next offseason. I mean, Arden Key was a guy who was released, goes to San Francisco, and all of a sudden he's a priority free agent. I feel like that's where I would go if I was Derek Barnett. I would probably take a little bit less to go there, but I don't know. I don't know if I would rule out him coming back to the Eagles at this point, right?
That, Bo.
That's
what
McMullen said last hour. I'm going, no, he's not coming back here again.
I don't think that's that crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, they're bringing everybody else back.
Yeah. The longer he's out there, and you're right, I mean, he's getting a 1-year deal now. We're past the range of 3 years, 27 million, whatever the valuation was. He's not getting that. So 1 year, 5 million? 1 year,
yeah, that sounds about
million?
right to me. Yeah.
Would the Eagles consider bringing Derek Barnett back at that number?
I think they would.
So do I.
I mean, they still need bodies at defensive end, especially if Hassan Reddick is going to be moonlighting as that Sam linebacker on first and second down. You need bodies. I mean, right now I expect them to add at the top of the draft, but right now it's Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, who's 34 coming off a torn Achilles, and Teron Jackson. Like, that's what they've got.
Yeah.
How much did the Eagles get hurt? And certainly not as much as the player, but Eagles are in that range. And you just said you think they're taking 2 defensive linemen in the first round.
The hypothetical that all things are equal.
Hypothetically, yes, well acknowledged. How much they get hurt by David Ajabu getting hurt? Was he a player they would have been looking at, should be looking at, fits right in that range, and now is an unquestioned, not going to be going at 15 or 16, probably not going in the first round. How much does that hurt the Birds?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a sense of how interested in him the Eagles were particularly, but just from the standpoint of you want an edge rusher, and one of the edge rushers expected to go in the top 20 is no longer going to go in the top 20. That pushes somebody else up the board theoretically. So I would imagine it does have some type of ripple effect.
Odds, Bo, that the Eagles take all 3 of those first-round picks. Give me a number, and give me a number that one of them is an offensive player if they take all 3. Do they have enough discipline, in other words, to go defense, defense, defense?
Well, I think you could make the case that wouldn't be I mean, I think they could use a wide receiver for sure. So I don't know if discipline is the right thing to me, especially
not now, since
knowing
they can't get a receiver.
Well, and especially knowing that, I mean, really the truth is offense wins in the NFL, right? Like, defense, it's harder to win by building through defense than it is from juicing up your offense. So I think there's a case to be made that there's all things equal, you should tilt towards the offense. I would say the odds of them making all 3 picks where they are at 15, 16, 19 are, I don't know, 15%, 20%. But I wouldn't be surprised if, they take, they go 15, move from 16 to 25 or something like that, and then take it, or move back a little bit, but not all the way. Because the problem is if there's no quarterback there that somebody wants, who's really given up a lot to move up to 15, 16, or 19, you're probably not getting a first-round pick in 2023 in return, right? So your best bet is probably to take a little bit, like a small trade back and get some kind of value. But my odds that they make all 3 picks in the first round, I would say 45%. I think it's close to 50-50. And then the odds that if they keep all 3, they draft at least one offensive player, I think it's like 80%. I would be shocked if they go defense, defense, defense.
Right, if they keep all 3. If that's the case, I think we all just kind of acknowledge the place that they could use, although you've already shown, Bo, you believe the Eagles do what the Eagles do, and that's why they go into the defensive line. Well, if that's the case, They might take another offensive lineman in the first round of this year's draft, even though it's the biggest depth position they have at this point right now on the roster. But why not go there again? Why? Because Eagles do that. Assuming it's wide receiver, where it still seems to us that they have a need to get someone in slotted above a Quez Watkins and or a Zach Pascal. Have you done your homework yet? Have you done your deciding yet out of the first round guys who may or may not be there? Because I don't think there's anyone in this draft that you go, well, he's off the board in the top 5. So if you're past 5, could you fall down to 16 or 17? I'm going to put anyone into the mix who was a wide receiver in this year's draft. The Williams kid from Alabama, London from USC, the 2 Ohio State kids, Wilson and Olave Burks. Do you have a specific order yet? Do you have a guy that you think is either going to be off the board, they got no chance, he's gone? Jody, this is the range, and I have these 3 guys in this specific order. Have you done your wide receiver work yet? Have you felt the need to upgrade it since the Eagles haven't gotten a veteran wide receiver via free agency or trade?
Well, the truth is that I view like this is the last week of free agency, and after this, I can really fully dive into the draft. And so I don't have strong opinions yet on the stack rank of those 5 guys. I know what I've read about them and fit wise what seems to make sense to me, but I would be lying if I said I had a strong opinion yet.
All right, Bo, last one from me, and everybody read Bo Wulf at The Athletic with our friend Zach Berman. Birds with Friends, Bo, Zach, Shield Kapadia, the great podcast. And by the way, grading the Zach Pascal move, I like your scale in that he is a droopy dog. He was droopy dog in Famous Dogs.
Zach
I like
Pascal,
that.
Great.
Droopy dog. So I'll end it on wide receivers. Jody's talking about the draft, but I want to talk about the narrative in-house. Remember, when the Eagles moved on from Doug Peterson, one of the big things was that staff couldn't develop young players. They couldn't develop young players. They bring in this staff with Nick Sirianni.
Which, by the way, if the idea is that they can't develop young players, why are you letting them pick the players in the draft? You can't that's just bad.
Point. There's a lot of contradiction there. But let's give the Eagles the benefit of the doubt. They bring in Nick Sirianni. They have all this expertise at the wide receiver position, especially. And to the point last year at training camp, I would often go, wow, Nick's spending a lot of time with the wide receivers. He's the head coach of this team. Why don't you go do something else? But my point is, Bo, if Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen and Aaron Moorhead and everybody else and Kevin Patullo and everybody else with experience at wide receiver can't help elevate the Jalen Ragers and J.J. Ortega-Whitesides of the world, what the heck can Zach Pascal do that gets the young receivers on this team on track and better fundamentals and better route running and better technique and attention to detail? Are we being sold a bill of goods with this nonsense?
I think that's a good point. Like, if your selling point is that Zach Pascal is going to make the wide receivers better, then what is Aaron Moorhead doing? What is Nick Sirianni doing? What is Kevin Patullo doing? I think that's a fair point. I think that you probably have to take that as, not the truth. And the reason they're signing him is because he's mediocre and they don't have anybody who's mediocre enough to be the number 3 receiver. That's what he's here for. So I think that's fair. I mean, maybe there's a case to be made that watching somebody do it as opposed to being told it is more effective. Whatever they have tried with Jalen Reagor has not worked before. So maybe getting to see this will make some kind of difference in him and something will click. But I think that is probably wishful thinking, and the real reason he's here is because they need a body, and he's a body.
I'm wondering if Zach Pascal is going to get a stipend for assistant coach. If you guys are believing he's going to get the veteran minimum for his salary, is there any way they can funnel him?
Like the Josh McCown deal.
For being an assistant coach. All right. Again, speculation on your part, Bo Wulf. 9 months from now, 10 months from now, whatever, you're working over your social media and you're continually getting tweets about how did the Eagles not get this wide receiver? And I give you the names who have changed teams this year: Devonta Adams, Allen Robinson, Robert Woods, Juju Smith-Schuster, DJ Chark. We know the names who have gone elsewhere, and we know what deals they got and what they cost, both in salary and or in trades, what you had to give up. Who's going to be the guy that Eagle fans are harping on you with on social media? How did we not do this? How did they get this guy and the Eagles didn't get this guy as a wide receiver? Which one is going to be the one that you're going to have to just roll your eyes when you get the tweet on, yeah, I know, they could have gotten him. They didn't. Let's move on. Who's the guy who's going to be on your timeline the most?
I think Juju is the guy who jumps out to me because he signed for so cheap that it was a deal the Eagles could have easily matched or beaten. I mean, obviously you have to beat the deal for him to go to the Chiefs, but for him to go play with Patrick Mahomes, if he's healthy, he's also very young. If he's healthy, he's going to put up big numbers in that offense, I would imagine, because it's playing with Patrick Mahomes and everybody's paying attention to Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, and they're a premier franchise in the league right now, so everybody's going to be seeing it. And everybody's going to be thinking the Eagles could have paid him $2 million more, and he would have been in the middle of the field for the Eagles instead. Because Allen Robinson, you're not going to beat that deal probably. DJ Chark, is he really going to put up big numbers in the Lions offense? I feel like Juju is the mix of opportunity and relative costs that Eagles fans might point to.
And that one I can't fault him because John has been selling me so well today about the Eagles aren't an attraction with their passing game being what it is because of what they did last year and because Jalen Hurts is what he is. Yeah, it's Patrick Mahomes. That's the end of the conversation.
Right.
You got a chance to go play with Patrick Mahomes. Guess what? You're going to go play with Patrick Mahomes. So that one you should be able to jerk off pretty easily. Eagles weren't going to be able to get the guy when Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are reaching out and saying, come play with us. Bo Wulf, we appreciate the fact that you played with us today. We need to do this more often. Thank you much. We'll definitely get you on before the draft, big guy.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Our pleasure. Bo Wulf from The Athletic. here with us on Birds 365. All right, we still got a couple minutes left here. We'll come back, a couple more things to kick around. McDonald and McMullen here with you on Birds 365.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Imagine for a moment that you went to work today and when you came home, you were catastrophically injured. Your life and your family's life. That's what happened to union construction worker Mike Little.
I was scared of what the end was going to be, but to be 100% honest with you, I knew I was going to be all right just by talking with Brian. In my heart, I just knew everything was going to be all right.
Call the firm and find out why they say, "We got this." Call 215-458-2222.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Welcome back, guys, here on Birds 365, coming down the home stretch. All right, quarterback position around the league yesterday, some voids were filled. The Atlanta Falcons decided to do the right thing, even though it's costly, $40 million dead cap hit. Eagles got over $33 million, so the Falcons will do what they have to do this year. They did the right thing by trading Matt Ryan. They had basically washed their hands at him when they asked him to push back a bonus so they could continue to negotiate and try and get Deshaun Watson. That didn't happen, so they needed to move on from Ryan. So good for Ryan, good for the Falcons too, because they had tried to bring him back. It would have been just a dumpster fire all year. He lands in Indianapolis, Colts' 5th starting quarterback in the last 5 years. Can they ever get that right? And I thought, very intriguingly, Marcus Mariota immediately resigns with the Falcons. Is he a QB1 in this league?
I don't think so. Not unless Chip Kelly gets a job. I mean, you got to play somebody. That was pretty well known that Atlanta was going to sign him once they moved on from Matt Ryan. Yeah, I mean, no. Is he QB1? By definition, yes, but no, I don't think he's deserving of that road. And, they probably know it. I mean, if you look at his deal, he got 2 years, pretty significant money, but not significant when compared to entrenched starters. They know. I mean, he's a bridge, and that's the decision they went with. Not a lot of options. I mean, if you want to go out and get Baker Mayfield, Jameis Winston re-signed with the Saints.
That's what coming off the
injury. Not a lot of options. They dried up. So all the dominoes have kind of fallen to the point now where you have to start looking at the draft, and we all know. I think that's one of the Eagles' plans for taking Kenny Pickett out to dinner is trying to get somebody else interested in Kenny Pickett so they can trade down from maybe 15. And, Malik Willis, the thought around this league is he's going to go top 10. Somebody's going to get desperate. He's going to be the first quarterback off the board. And then if he goes that early, then somebody else is going to get desperate. I think that's what the Eagles are going to try to prey on and try to even get more out of their 3 first-round picks, whether that's moving back, moving around, moving the next year, whatever. So many different options. I wouldn't have went that route, but they know he's a bridge quarterback.
Yeah, he's a one and done guy for sure. But I was a little surprised. And it sounds funny because we're kicking around numbers at 35 and 40 million per year. Jameis Winston gets 2 years and $28 million. Yet it rings to me as if it's a bit of an overpay. Maybe it's because he played for 1 year at $2 million previously that you go, wow, he went all the way up to 28. But he's a starting quarterback, and starting quarterbacks are making 30,
cost
35,
of doing
40.
business. Yeah, cost of doing business. And that's what I've been warning about Jalen Hurts. Enjoy it while you can, because the cost of doing business at that particular position is only going up and up and up.
You do have to pay through the roof. So if Mariota's starting in Atlanta and Ryan is starting in Indianapolis and Jameis is starting in New
I guess
Orleans.
Jimmy's still out there. I forgot about Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right.
He's still out there.
Garoppolo and Mayfield need a chair. Where are they going to end up sitting down for this upcoming year?
Carolina. Is Carolina the last team? I'm trying to go through
Seattle too.
Seattle.
Unless you think Drew Lock's the man.
No, yeah. Those are the two, right? Those are the only two. I'm doing it off the top of my head.
If you're the general manager of either of those two teams, you're okay with that. Because the one thing you don't want to get into is a bidding war where 2 or 3 different teams. Well, there's only 2 legit starting quarterbacks left from last year's season going forward to this year that have been replaced. And I still don't know if Trey Lance is capable of playing, but everyone seems to believe you don't take a guy at number 3 and plan to sit him for 3 years behind a middle-of-the-road quarterback like
that's tough.
Jimmy Garoppolo.
That's a tough sell if you're John Lynch.
Yeah,
you can do it, but that's a tough sell.
It is. And the only reason why he can do it is because the 49ers went to the championship game last year. And he's got a Super Bowl appearance with Jimmy G and a league championship appearance with the guy. So if you want to push the envelope, you can go, hey, what more do you want? I know we haven't won the bowl yet, but we've gotten damn close twice. Get off my case. I'll decide when Trey Lance is getting in here. But it does continue to make the spinning carousel quarterback fun to watch, and will continue to do so. Today, I watched Malik Willis. Oh, I'm pumped, John. I was pumped yesterday for Kenny Pickett. Quarterbacks versus the air. Nothing intrigues me more than watching guys throw against nobody. And Willis will look good today, and Pickett was okay. But I don't have a problem with the gloves. I've seen a couple of guys, got no quarterback wears gloves out there in the field. Yeah, they do. Maybe not on both hands. And
Teddy Bridgewater, Teddy 2 gloves. Teddy started that. People complained about that at the time.
Right. I'm okay with it. If we're going to let the stupid wide receivers wear these gloves that make it almost impossible to drop the football, why can't we do the same for the quarterback? So, Kenny, wear your gloves proudly, buddy. Don't know when you're going to get picked in the first round, but go ahead and wear those gloves proudly. We'll have some fun watching
pro day. My favorite pro day was Johnny Manziel throwing over a broomstick. Phenomenal.
Greatest pro day ever. How'd that work out? If that wasn't a lesson to football fans, I don't know what is. God, the ESPN guys, the NFL Network guys were fawning all over themselves on how great Johnny Manziel was.
Throwing over a broomstick, Jody. Not everybody can throw that. Not everybody can do that. Actually, Gil Brandt will still tell you today the best pro day in history was Sam Bradford. Sam was accurate. You got to be fair. Sam was a very accurate quarterback. He could have been really good, but the injuries obviously.
Where is Sam Bradford today? Do we have any
Probably
idea?
playing golf. Hell of an athlete too, Sam Bradford.
Okay.
He's like Jake Elliott. He's great at everything.
I hope he goes
Except-
out and shoots
except
69
football.
today.
Yeah.
More power to you, Sammy. Partner, I say we do this again in 22 hours. You up for it?
Let's do it. 2-2. Chuck Woolery me, Jody. Out the door.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube,